Hello, friends. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel. Tell me, have you ever wondered what money really is? What is its true purpose? How did it come about? And how fair is the financial system we live in today? Today, we'll dive into the history of money, explore how it originated and for what purposes. You'll also learn why Bitcoin is considered a response to the injustice of the financial system towards ordinary people and who invented this revolutionary technology. Let's get started. In prehistoric times, people exchanged goods and services directly, utilizing a simple barter system. For instance, a diligent farmer could trade his harvested wheat for fresh meat with a skilled hunter. This rudimentary system possessed both certain advantages and numerous significant drawbacks. One of the primary advantages was the complete absence of intermediaries in the exchange process, meaning no one desired to take a cut from your valuable deal. You simply traded as you mutually agreed with each other. However, there were far more substantial disadvantages, commencing with the undeniable fact that goods were often quite bulky and heavy. After all, you certainly can't easily carry a large quantity of meat or a substantial amount of wheat around in your pocket. There was also the critical need for a double coincidence of wants. For a successful deal to genuinely happen, both involved parties absolutely had to need precisely what the other possessed. This inherent limitation made transactions inherently difficult and severely restricted the possibilities for extensive trade. Recognizing these inherent shortcomings and practical limitations of the primitive barter system, ancient societies gradually began to employ various items that could effectively serve as a reliable medium of exchange. Different cultures across the globe used a wide array of diverse objects, such as durable animal skins, especially prevalent among hunting tribes, nutritious grain, which was particularly common among many African tribes, and valuable cacao beans, which were highly esteemed and cherished by the Aztecs. Stones, decorative shells, and numerous other natural items were also commonly utilized. All these diverse items collectively became the very first means of exchange that could be relatively easily used, conveniently stored, and accurately measured, which significantly facilitated and streamlined the process of trade. Essentially, they effectively became the first true equivalents of modern money. But as human civilization progressively developed and advanced, people began to widely use precious metals such as gleaming gold and shimmering silver because they were simply durable, rare, and divisible. Then people learned to mint coins from these metals. That is, the first coins were struck. These coins were standardized by weight and bore official marks that confirmed their authenticity and value. Metal money had many advantages. The first is convenience and durability, meaning that metals did not deteriorate over time. The second is divisibility, meaning that metals could be split into smaller parts without losing value. And the third is universal recognition, meaning that gold and silver were valued everywhere. Accordingly, for these three reasons, coins have been used as money to this day, that is, for more than 2,500 years. The next stage after coins was paper money, which began to be widely used in the 18th century in Europe and the United States. Paper money represented receipts for deposits of gold and silver, which were in turn stored in banks. These receipts could be used for trade, making exchange easier without the need to transport heavy metals. Over time, the use of paper money spread throughout the world thanks to its lightness and convenience. A significant moment in history was the emergence of the Bretton Woods system in 1944. It was established to stabilize international currencies after World War II. As a result of the creation of the system, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, was established. It was created to regulate exchange rates and provide loans to countries experiencing temporary balance of payments difficulties. But the most important outcome was a fixed exchange rate system where all currencies were pegged to the US dollar, which in turn was backed by gold. Why the dollar specifically? The answer is quite simple. The US was essentially the only country that emerged from World War II as a financial winner. That is, after the war, three-quarters of the world's gold reserves ended up in the United States. Nevertheless, the system that was created lasted only 27 years. So, in 1971, the US unilaterally abandoned the gold standard, and as a result, the Bretton Woods system simply ceased to exist. This happened because of a gold shortage in the US and growing international pressure on the dollar. By that time, the US had printed so many dollars that there simply was not enough gold to back all that paper. And what do you think backed money after the gold standard was abolished? Nothing except for the guarantees of central banks and the trust of the governments that issue them, as well as trust in the economic systems of those countries. So today, the value of the dollar, like any other fiat currency, lies only in the fact that people believe in the stability of this asset and that it can be used for exchange. The more people use a particular currency, the more reliable and stable it is considered. So remember, money is a religion, and like any other religion, it exists only because people believe in it. But let us get back to our financial system. A feature of this, so to speak, construction is that money is controlled by states, which regularly print more, thereby increasing the money supply. The amount of money in circulation increases, and as a result, the value of money falls. In other words, your savings lose value. This process is called inflation. At the same time, all transactions go through banks, and banks can lose their depositors' money for hundreds of different reasons. In short, the main medium of exchange in the financial system is, to put it mildly, not in your hands. And since we've started talking about banks, let's immediately move on to the next stage in the history of money, namely electronic money. Electronic money is a digital form of traditional currencies and can be used for online transactions. Examples include bank transfers, credit and debit cards, as well as payment systems like PayPal. Electronic money makes instant and secure transactions possible, making it an integral part of the modern economy. In short, it's a modern, fast, and secure way to make payments. But there's also a flip side to this coin, and that flip side is called the banking multiplier. I won't go into detail about how it works now because that's a topic for a separate video, but in short, banks can issue loans worth 10 times more than what they actually have in their vaults, and electronic money is their best helper in this process. And this is exactly what caused the 2008 crisis, because banks, having the ability to give out loans to anyone for amounts many times greater than their reserves, did just that, which triggered the deepest economic crisis on the planet since the Great Depression. Back then, absolutely everyone could get a mortgage, even those who, even in theory, could never pay it off. As a result, debt on loans kept growing, the real profitability of banks was falling, and when banks could no longer meet their obligations to investors or the central bank, the whole system collapsed like a house of cards. This started the so called bank fall. People lost their assets, businesses closed, the number of jobs shrank. And all of this happened solely because of the reckless lending policies of commercial banks. And what do you think happened next? Those same banks were bailed out by the government, which considered them simply too important for the economy to just let them go bankrupt. In other words, the government simply gave them money from the state treasury, or nowadays just printed more money, thus devaluing people's savings. As a result, banks first made super profits and then were saved at the expense of ordinary taxpayers. So, do you think anything can be done about this injustice? If the state has a monopoly on printing money in any amount at the whim of politicians, and the money is kept in banks that manage your funds as they see fit, so the idea of creating a currency that would not depend on either banks or the state and at the same time would be protected and secure sounded almost impossible. But in that same 2008, an anonymous person under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto described the concept of blockchain and published this document online. In 2009, the world's first decentralized currency, Bitcoin, appeared. The main feature of Bitcoin is that it belongs solely to its owner. And to make a transfer, you don't need a bank or any other intermediary. All you need to know is the recipient's wallet address. And of course, the creators of Bitcoin set a rule that only 21 million coins will ever be mined. And at the same time, every 10,000 blocks, the reward for adding a new block to the chain is halved. This means that if in 2009 a miner received 50 Bitcoins for adding a block, today it's just over 3. In other words, Bitcoin is a deflationary asset, its mining becomes more difficult, and the rate of issuance decreases over time. At the same time, there is a limit on the total circulating supply. But who is Satoshi Nakamoto? In reality, Satoshi Nakamoto is just a pseudonym under which the original article describing Bitcoin was published, and under which the first software for its implementation was developed. Despite Bitcoin's enormous influence and importance, the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto remains a mystery to this day. Nevertheless, there are assumptions and theories about who might be behind this pseudonym. Let's take a look at each of the possibilities. The first candidate is Hal Finney. Hal Finney is a well-known cryptographer and developer who was one of the first members of the Bitcoin community and the recipient of the very first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto himself. Finney lived in the same city as a man named Dorian Nakamoto, which sparked a lot of speculation. However, Finney always denied any involvement in the creation of Bitcoin. The second candidate is Nick Szabo. Nick Szabo is a well-known cryptographer and computer scientist famous for his work on the concept of smart contracts and for creating BitGold, a precursor to Bitcoin. Linguistic analyses of Szabo's and Nakamoto's texts revealed significant similarities in writing style, which led to speculation that Szabo might be Satoshi. However, Szabo also denied any involvement with Bitcoin. The third candidate is, of course, Dorian Nakamoto. Dorian Prentice Satoshi Nakamoto is an American of Japanese descent who was named as a possible creator of Bitcoin by journalists. Specifically, a Newsweek article claimed that Dorian was the real Satoshi Nakamoto, but he himself denied this and stated that he had never heard of Bitcoin until the journalist's investigation. The next candidate is Craig. Craig is an Australian entrepreneur who publicly claimed to be involved in the creation of Bitcoin in 2016, but his claims were questioned by the community itself due to a lack of convincing evidence. There are various inconsistencies in his story. Moving on, the next contender is Adam B. Adam Back is a cryptocurrency developer who created Hashcash. In fact, he is mentioned in the original Bitcoin white paper as someone who actively contributed to the development of cryptography and blockchain. His technical approach aligns with Satoshi's work. Nevertheless, he also denies any involvement in the creation of Bitcoin. And finally, the last theory is the assumption that Bitcoin could have been created by a group of developers. That is, many people think that Satoshi Nakamoto might just be a collective pseudonym for a group of developers or even an organization. This hypothesis is based on the broad range of knowledge required to create Bitcoin, including cryptography, programming, and economics. So, what do you think? Is Satoshi a real person, a pseudonym, or was Bitcoin created by some organization with many people involved? Write your answer in the comments. On that note, I think we can wrap up. I hope this video was useful for you. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. There will be a lot more interesting content here.
Most traders spend years building up their capital, trading with just pennies. But there is a way to skip that process and start trading with large sums right away. This opportunity is available right now. Very soon, you could start managing hundreds of thousands of dollars and earn up to 90% of the profits from your trades. Right Funded is a prop firm that offers traders what was once only a dream. A fair profit split, 80 to 20 in favor of the trader, and deposit options ranging from $5,000 to $200,000. In total, you can manage up to $400,000. Profit withdrawals are available once a month, but for an additional fee when purchasing a deposit, you can choose a package that allows withdrawals either every 2 weeks or every week. There is also a choice between two platforms, DXTrade and CTrader. DXTrade is suitable for those who are used to working on cryptocurrency exchanges. In other words, it's a simple and intuitive platform. There is also a built-in trading journal, which helps you analyze your trades and improve your results. CTrader, on the other hand, is more suitable for fans of the classics, meaning those who are used to working on traditional platforms like MetaTrader. And just as cool is the fact that you have the opportunity to trade simultaneously on both the cryptocurrency market and the forex market. In other words, you can use a single deposit on both markets at the same time. It's very easy to pass the evaluation test. It takes place in 2 stages. First, you need to make a profit of 8% and then an additional 5% on your deposit. At the same time, you need to observe the limits, 5% per day and 10% of the total deposit. And there are no time restrictions for you, so you can complete these stages even over the course of a whole year. And if you succeed, you get real capital to manage. Most traders continue to trade with small accounts, because some still don't know about the existence of prop firms, while others just haven't made up their minds yet. Other traders, however, successfully passed the test and are already trading with capital in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The only difference between them is this: someone made the decision and took action. The only question is, when will you make your choice? Follow the link in the description below this video and choose your deposit. The larger your capital, the greater your profit. And with the promo code in the description, you'll get a 10% discount when you purchase a deposit. The code is reusable and can be used as often as you like.